Okay, please. I'm Joost Bunsma, and I work for het Waterschapshuis HWH, and I will chair this meeting and will lead you through the agenda. And het Waterschapshuis is the lead procurer of this PCP-wise projects. Next slide, please. As you noticed during our previous webinars, we have some housekeeping rules. Please stay muted unless you are invited to speak. If you have questions, use the chat. And if you have thoughts, drop them in the chat anyway. And then an important one, a new one. This is an informative webinar, and please be aware that this webinar aims to inform tenders on the tender submission process. Of course, you are invited to ask questions, but if they are questions about the tender documents, they will only be formal or final when published on the platform. So we will try to answer your questions as adequate as possible, but they are only official when they are published on the platform. Raise your hand when you want to speak. The session is recorded. Cameras are optional, but you feel free to keep them off. But we love to see you and be respectful to one another. Next slide, Arnoud, then the agenda. My welcome, then a presentation by Isabel Piero Baquandano from Cormus Procurement Services about the tender documents. Then Arnoud will inform you and tell you something about how to submit the tender. Nick van der Kuil, a colleague of us from het Waterschapshuis, will highlight some important questions and answers. Then GAC will tell you or introduce you, and I hope tell you, on the matchmaking platform. And then when we are on time, there is some time reserved for questions. And I think this was the last one for me. So Isabel, please start.
Hello, thank you very much, Joost. Can you all hear me and see me well? Mostly hear me, seeing me it's not so important. Great. So what I want to do in this part of the presentation is really go through all the tender documents that you need to submit for us to be able to evaluate you as a company and your tender, and how you have to fill in these documents and in which envelopes do you have to put these documents, okay? While I do this presentation, I will also pinpoint some frequent questions, so some questions that we have been receiving on a really frequently basis, so that we can set some clarity on those. And of course, if you have further questions on that, you can also use this time to ask them. So maybe I can have the next slide, please, Arnold. Thank you so much. So of course, the tender documents that you need to submit now, I mean before the 7th of January, that is, will help us to first evaluate you as a company, in the sense that we will be checking your eligibility aspects, that you are under no exclusion grounds, that you comply with the selection criteria. And then once we have checked that, we will evaluate your offer, meaning that we will check the compliance criteria of your offer. If you comply with all the mandatory requirements, that's the pass-fail award criteria. And we will then check the weighted award criteria. For this, we have different envelopes and different documentation. Some questions that have been very much asked during the Q&A timing are linked to eligibility. So some clarifications. If, as a company, just one company, you have all the necessary expertise to comply with all the eligibility, that you're under no exclusion criteria, and you have all the selection criteria, you comply with that, you do not need to do not need to act in consortia or having subcontractors or third parties. You can submit a tender on your own. meaning that it is possible to act in consortia and have subcontractors because we think it's difficult to have all the capabilities in one company. But if you do, you also can bid as one company. This is linked with the second question that we are receiving many times. There are no mandatory requirements regarding the size of the consortium or the geographical location. Let me give you an example from Spain. If you are a company located in Spain and you want to have a consortium with different companies just from Spain, that's fine with us as long as you all comply with the eligibility criteria, are under no exclusion criteria, and together you comply with the selection criteria. If you want to act in a consortium with a bigger company, with several SMEs, and from companies all over Europe, that is also fine. We are not going to judge that. The only thing that is mandatory for us, that it's relevant for us, is that you comply with the eligibility aspects, that you are under no exclusion criteria, and that you all together comply with the selection criteria, okay? But where your company is located or the size of your company is not relevant to us. Important here, think carefully and think hard about your partners for your consortium, because the partners that are submitting a tender now cannot be modified on later stages. There are really restrictive and specific cases in which that is possible. So for example, if one of your partners all of a sudden is bankrupt or has been merged with another company, that kind of modification of a consortium is allowed. But these are really specific restricted situations. In principle, the partners that you enter the PCP now in are the partners that you are going to finish the PCP wise with, okay? So you select your partners carefully now. And then just another thing that you have to consider and that I will highlight again, every member of a consortium needs to fill in and submit the European Single Procurement Document. Are you hearing that noise or is it just me?
No, I hear that also.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure if it is. I don't think it's here.
I hear it also.
Okay, great. I don't know what is it. Now it's gone.
I have muted this person. Yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so European Single Procurement Document. I'm going to dwell a bit later on that, but everybody, and when I say everybody, is all the members of the consortium, all the subcontractors, if you have third parties on whose capabilities you are relying on, needs to fill in a European Single Procurement Document. I will go into detail on how to fill that in because we have had many questions about it. So no worries, we are dealing with that. Then some things about the offer. Please consider that when you are submitting a bid now, you are submitting a bid for the whole phase, for the whole PCP. Of course, the focus is on phase one because now we still have to design the solution, but that's why we are asking you to provide an estimation of the costs for phase two and phase three. Because when you are providing now an offer, you have to keep in mind that PCP-wise is for phase one, phase two, and phase three, not just phase one. Also, we got this question, which is really important. If you participate now in PCP wise and you make it to phase one and your solution is successful and you get an invitation for phase two, and for whichever reason you decide that you no longer want to participate, we will be very sorry about that, but there is no penalty for you, okay? So it's really up to you whether you want to move forward once you're invited for the next call-offs. There are no penalties, it's just a voluntary decision. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Here, real quick, in the tender documents, you have this checklist list, however you want to call it, just explaining what is each of the tender documents, kind of the purpose of the tender documents, and if you have to take any particular action in this point in time, okay? So I really recommend you to check this, but again, we are going to go through this in this presentation. Could I have the next slide, please, Arnaud? Thank you. So as I was saying, it's very important to understand the documents with which you have to do something at this point in time. And once you have these documents, in which envelope from the Tutogare platform, you have to put the documents in. Let me explain. If you check the Tutogare platform, you will see that we have three different envelopes. First, let me say that it's just a taxonomy thing, calling them envelopes. They are not real envelopes. We are using an electronic archive, but it's just structured in three different parts. Envelope A is the administrative envelope. So in the administrative envelope, you have to put all the documentation that will help us check whether you comply with the eligibility aspects, that you are under no exclusion grounds, and that you comply with all the selection criteria. And then this envelope will be opened by the Administrative Procurement Committee, who will check this, make a final decision, and this final decision will be approved by the Procurement Evaluation Board. I am going to go through each of the documents that you have to fill it in the next slide, so I'm not going to stop here now, but just for you to understand the structure. In envelope B, which is the technical envelope, the Technical Evaluation Committee will open this one after we have a final decision on envelope A, okay? So they will just open this envelope and evaluate the technical form, the technical specificities, meaning compliance criteria, pass-fail hour criteria, and weighted hour criteria, except for price. The Technical Evaluation Committee will make a decision which will be approved by the Procurement Evaluation Board. And then, once we have this decision, the Financial Evaluation Committee will open envelope C, which is the financial envelope, and will analyze the financial form. And again, the Procurement Evaluation Board will take the final go, the final approval, once the FEC has submitted their final decision. I am saying this because we have got a really interesting question, wondering if this evaluation is going to be done internally in the consortium or externally. It's going to be, as you can see, done internally. If you check the tender documents, you will see the composition of the Administrative Procurement Committee, the Technical Evaluation Committee, the Financial Evaluation Committee, and the Procurement Evaluation Board. All of them are members of PCP-wise. So the evaluation is going to be fully done in-house. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So now to the different documents that you need to put in each of the envelopes. So as you can see, this has a logic. We are going from broad to narrow. What are we going to evaluate? The different envelopes that we are going to use to evaluate this, and then the actual documents that you have to put in the envelopes. And then we are going to go through each of these documents so that you know what exactly you need to submit and fill in, okay? So envelope A, that's the administrative envelope. What do we need there? We need trade register certifications from all the participants. Please, 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 everybody get their trade register certification from all the members of the consortia. And I am saying members of the consortia, main contractor, subcontractors, third parties on whose capabilities you are relying on. Everybody submits this document, okay? Super important. Actually, I would recommend you to print this slide and do the checks when you have all the documents. Next point. Tender document 10, European single procurement document. This also helps to check eligibility and exclusion criteria. Same as with the trade register certification. Everybody fills in, completes, and signs the ASPD. Super important, please, because we need this information. Otherwise, if you don't submit some of these documents, may lead to exclusion, and we really do not want to exclude you. So just have this checklist and just click check whenever you have the document. Tender document 11, that's the consortia statement. You only need to fill this in if you're acting in consortia. So imagine if you are just submitting the tender as a single contractor, you don't need to fill this in. If you're a single contractor with subcontractors, you don't need to fill this in. You just need to fill it in if you have partners, if you're working in a consortia, okay? Then we will need it, and we will need it signed by all the partners of the consortia. Then we have tender document 12, which is the standard self-declaration form for project references. This helps us check selection criteria 10, 11, 12, and 13. I recommend you to read this through just to understand what exactly we want there. You do need to submit this. The difference is that together in a consortium, you can comply with all these project references. Meaning, imagine that company A has project reference X and company B has project reference Y. They can submit this project reference even though they obviously don't need to have the other project reference. Together, you should comply with all the selection criteria, but together, not every one of the companies, okay? Then we have the CVs. CVs are meant to prove selection criteria 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, a lot of numbers. And again, you need to submit this together in a consortia. So all in all together, you should have these capabilities. And last but not least, in envelope A, you need to submit documentation to prove availability of testing facilities and necessary materials and or equipment. If you check the documentation, and we are going to discuss that, no worries, you will have to submit a description and then prove that you have these testing facilities. What kind of proof? Proof of having a property, so you own a place where you can do the testing, or the invoices, the renting invoices, okay? Then in envelope B, you only have to include the tender document H, which is the technical form. And I'm saying only because it's a complex document, we are going through it, but you just need to fill that in. It will help us check the compliance criteria, the pass-fail hour criteria, and the weighted hour criteria. And last but not least, in envelope C, you will include just your tender document 9, the financial form. You will make a specific cost breakdown for phase 1, so that's binding, and then you will have to make an estimation for phase 2 and phase 3 and include the list of staff who is going to be participating in the tender document. More on that in the next slides. One very important thing, okay? Whomever is signing any of these documents needs to have the power to bind the company. So normally, the person who signs should be, for example, the person that is in the Chamber of that is registered in the Chamber of Commerce. If that is not the case, then you need, together with this certificate of the Chamber of Commerce, you need to submit to us a proxy indicating that the person signing has the capabilities to sign. This is very important. Normally authorized by the person of the Chamber of Commerce. Why are we doing this? Because we need to make sure that the person that is signing indeed is capable of binding the company. So that's why you need to make sure that the person who is signing has this power. Normally, that would be the person that is part of that is registered in the Chamber of Commerce, but that could also, sometimes is obviously in a big company foremost, it's more usual that you have a person with the powers to bind the company and then they have a power of attorney. If you just add together to the tender documentation under envelope A this proxy, that would be fine, okay? So that's very important. Could I have next slide, please? Thank you very much. Here, I'm not going to dwell. I just wanted you to have kind of a visual of the previous slide, because as you can see here the envelope A, the envelope B, the envelope C, and each of the documents, and why do we need them, and what are they proving. So maybe I can move to next slide, or not? Thank you. So as I was saying, since this is not easy or straightforward, we are going now through each of the envelopes and each of the documents that you have to fill in each of the envelopes, okay? So envelope A, you will make sure that you are including the certification from the trade register. You will include all the CVs just to prove the selection criteria. Please read carefully the description for the selection criteria under, I think it's section 3.3 of the request for tender. Why am I saying this? Because under this criteria, some of these CVs, some of this personnel cannot be subcontracted. So make sure that this personnel that cannot be subcontracted is indeed part of the staff of the main contractors, okay? Just for that, just really check that. We also would appreciate a lot when you're submitting this selection criteria, this CV, that you highlight in particular the experience related to the selection criteria, foremost because it will really ease our evaluation. So that would be highly appreciated. It's not mandatory, but just we would really appreciate it. Then you also need to include proof of availability of testing facilities and necessary materials and or equipment. That's for selection criteria 16. And as I was saying, you will just need to provide us with a description of the testing facilities, servers if any, and property documents and renting invoices. So if you're renting a place where you're doing the testing, that's fine. Just send us the last invoice so that we have this proof. Consortium statement. As I was saying before, you only need to submit to fill in, sign and submit this document if you're acting in consortia. This document actually means that you are agreeing to having a joint and several liability, so you together as a consortium are jointly liable. It also means that you are appointing a lead contractor so that we have one point of contact, and also you're giving powers to this lead contractor to be in contact with the main procurer, so that's HVH, and to sign the tender, the contracts if you are awarded. Please note, if you have checked the tender documents, you will see that this is just one pager. If you are more than 3 members of a consortium, just copy and paste the table and add as many tables as you need, okay? So it's not that you just have to be 3 members of a consortium, no. Please just add as many tables as you need. Then, another thing, please do not modify the template. So just like copy paste the table, but do not modify it. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So the famous ASPD, we have had so many questions about it. So let me try to explain how to fill it in, what kind of issues are you going to find. And of course, if you have more questions, I think there are questions on the chat. I will check those once I'm done with the presentation, because otherwise I will not be able to continue. But ASPD, if you check Tutogare platform, you will see that you have 2 formats, the PDF format, and then you have an XML format. For us, it's fine if you just print the PDF, fill it by hand, and send it to us with a handwritten signature by a duly authorized person, okay? That's it. But for us, it's fine if you want to do it handwritten. If you prefer to do it electronically, which is perfectly fine, here you have a link to, actually this is the Spanish visor of the European Single Procurement Document, meaning that you can also find online visors from other member states, but of course I have added the Spanish one because why not? It's in English. So you can use the Spanish one, but it's in English. Don't worry about that. And you just need to fill in the highlighted part. So you will need to click on this link, indicate that you are an economic operator, indicate that you want to import the ASPD that you have previously downloaded from the Tutogare platform, the XML version, and then you will need to indicate which is your country of origin. Again, I put Spain because, well, that's true. So then you will just click on the next. You will click on the next, and then you will go to different pages of the ASPD, which are the same pages that you have in the PDF. You will just be indicating that you are under no exclusion grounds, that you comply with the requirements of the tender, and so forth, and so on and so forth, until you arrive until this point exactly. The last image that I have copy pasted here. So that means that those are the concluding remarks. You will have to add there the date, the place, and the signature. And then you will be giving the possibility to download. I would strongly recommend to download both formats, because of course, if you download it only in PDF, that's fine. You can just then sign it with an electronic certificate and upload it to us. But imagine if you have made any mistake. If you just download the PDF version, you cannot go back to the visor and upload the latest version because you don't have it anymore. You need the XML. So as much as you can, please just download both versions, okay? And you just need to submit to us the PDF signed. Okay, could I have the next slide, please, Arnaud? Thank you very much. Still in envelope A. In envelope A, you also need to fill in the standard self-declaration form. This is just to demonstrate your experience and that you have some project references related to selection criteria 10, 11, 12, and 13. Please, couple of things. Fill in the template as is. Do not modify the template. And here we start with the page limitations. Whenever you see in a tender document a page limitation or indications of how you have to fill in the tender document, so for example, letter font, size of the font, spacing, please comply with that, because excess pages we need to take out. So in some cases that might mean that you will start from a lower ground than the one that you should be starting with, because you should have more points or you should have more experience. And in some cases, it might lead to exclusion. In this particular case, please just 4 slides to describe each of the cases. We don't need more than that. Just indicate with which selection criteria you're complying with. And also in signature, you just need to indicate which member of the consortium is the one that is providing with the reference, okay? So that's the idea here, that you, as a member of the consortium, indicate who is the one that has this reference. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, now we move to envelope B, which is basically the technical form. Several things here. We are saying that you can submit a technical form of 50 pages, including annexes, images, diagrams, if any. We also have a strict limitation when it comes to fonts and spacing. Why am I saying this? Because pages in excess are going to not be considered. And here there is a clerical mistake that we are going to correct, but please just keep it in mind. pages in excess will be taken not from 0.5 and then 0.4, but from 0.4 and then 0.3, which means that if you have excess pages here, the first ones that will be taken out will be the weighted award criteria, which actually gives you additional points in regards with the competition, right? So that means that you will still participate, but you could have had more points and you will not. And if we have to move, we have to erase even more pages, we will have to move to point 3. Point 3 is the pass-fail award criteria, mandatory requirements. If we have to take pages from there, it will lead to exclusion because you have to have these requirements. So please, 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 keep in mind the page limitation. Very, very important. Also, regarding to another mistake that you need to consider when you're reading the tender documents, when we are referring to weighted award criteria, we were always referring to point number 5 and it's point number 4. Okay, so just bear that in mind. The referral should be to point number four. We have been asked several times, can we modify the template to adapt it? Please do not modify the template. Just reply to it in the way that it has been structured, because if you reply to it in the way it has been structured, we are going to have all the information that we need to properly evaluate your tender. So please just keep that in mind. Do not modify the template. Another thing, for example, in the public description of the project, what we want is just for you to give an outline of what you expect to do and what you expect to obtain in PCP-wise. It's just something that we will use to publish it. We are mandated by the European Commission also to make some of these publications, but be smart about it. Just make a really short description because, I mean, you want to save your precious space for other things. So just be smart about it. Just quick, this short disclaimer, 4 or 5 lines tops, and you're good to go. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. Then we move to the pass-fail award criteria. And here is where we have gotten many questions about modifying the template. Please don't modify the template because if you have checked it, it is really a table that it's going to make it really easy for our technical evaluation committee to evaluate if you are complying with each of the requirements. If you modify that, first, we will have to disqualify you, but it would make it really difficult for our technical evaluation committee to evaluate and be able to compare all the tenders because you are going to be changing their structure of evaluation. So please do not modify it, okay? Could I have the next slide, please? Same goes for the weighted award criteria. You just need to fill the blank spaces here. You can fill it so longer or shorter as you deem necessary. That's fine with us. Just bear in mind the whole 50 pages number, okay? One thing that I want to mention about this weighted award criteria that has also been asked is that you do not have to comply with any of these at this point in time, right? So you just need to comply with the mandatory requirements of Section 3. However, if you tell us that you are going to comply with, let's say, A1.1, and you get all the points there, that becomes mandatory for you in your design of the solution, meaning that we will check that once at the end of the phase, we will check if you are actually complying with that, and that will be part of the satisfactory evaluation of your particular project. Okay, so just think carefully if you want to comply with that, because then it will become mandatory for you. That's important. A clerical mistake that one of you noticed, thank you so much for that. You will notice that under 8.3 and 8.5, the points vary from the tender document 8 and the section 3.5 in the tender documents. Please consider correct the points under section 3.5 of the request for tender, not the ones for the technical offer. Don't worry, we will modify that, but just for you to know. It's just a minor number, so I think it's instead of 1, it's just 2 points, and then 1 and 2. But in any case, please consider correct the ones under section 3.5. We will duly modify it, but for you to know. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. Under envelope B, we are also going to be asking you some questions such as what parts of the offer are confidential, because you cannot say that the whole offer is confidential. There is jurisprudence of the European Court about that. but be smart about it. We just need you to say, okay, for example, this section is confidential because, and give me a really quick reasoning why. So for example, because this will really affect my stance in front of the other competitors, whatever it is. Again, just very brief explanations suffice, because I don't want you to waste your precious space on thorough explanations on things that we can understand with a brief explanation, okay? Point 6 is a declaration. So with this declaration, you're basically saying that you comply with the compliance criteria, that you are going to comply with the project under the conditions under which is specified. You just need to sign it. Of course, make sure that you are going to comply with it, because we have the right to ask for clarifications on later stage. But again, it's just signing it. Then we have the declaration about the recent participation. If you notice, this has to do a lot with eligibility. We are basically making sure that companies that cannot participate are not participating. Could I have the next slide, please? I think this one is yes, this one is the last from the technical form. Under point 8, you will be declaring your pre-existing rights. Please note, I don't need to know all your pre-existing rights, okay? I just need to know if you have some pre-existing rights that you are planning to use for PCP-wise. If that is not the case, you don't need to declare those, okay? This has to do with the fact that, of course, you are going to keep the intellectual property rights ownership, but we are going to have a license to use the results. And if we need to use some background IPRs that you may have, we need to know which ones are those, okay? So that's the reasoning behind it. Please note that also we will modify that. This was really a formatting mistake. Currently there are 4 columns, and the part highlighted in yellow was part of the first column, but it makes no sense because that's just generic. You just have 3 columns, okay? So for you to know, we are going to modify that, but just so that you are aware of. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. And this is the last envelope, finally, the financial form. In the financial form, there is again a page limitation. So please, 10 pages, comply with the font, comply with the single spacing. We would really appreciate it, because we really do not want to take out pages that are needed. Things that I need you to really keep in mind when you are preparing this. Total value of products, in this case you will see here as materials offered in phase 1 and phase 2, have to be less than 50% of the value of phase 1 and phase 2. And the total value of the products offered in all phases, so phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 materials, need to be less than 50% of the PCP total value. This is not just a random request. This is because we are talking about a PCP, and in a PCP we are purchasing R&D service. Otherwise, we are not complying with the definition of PCP, and we fall under the scope of the directive. So as you can see, it's fairly important that you keep this percentage in mind, okay? We are also asking you to provide with binding unit prices for all foreseeable items for the whole duration, and give a breakdown of the price for the current phase in terms of units and units prices. So here, important things. What we mean here is that, for example, if you're telling me that you have a junior and the junior costs, and this is really a wild guess, okay, costs 50 euros per hour. You cannot go in phase 2 and tell me that your junior now costs 60 euros, because that is binding, okay? If you tell me now 60, it's fine that in the next phase you say 60, but these are binding for the rest. If you are just offering now a junior, but in the next phases you offer a medior, so junior now is 50, medior is 60 in phase 2, medior will have to be 60 in phase 2. So you can see the added items will keep the price that you offer. Here in this table, you can actually add tables or information as you deem necessary, okay? So for example, if you have personnel including hourly rates, you could add a mini table under this field, just including what are the costs from junior, senior, and medior. Materials, you could add a list of materials, that kind of things. I'm mentioning specifically junior, medior, and senior because we had a question about it. So please feel free to add as much as you need, because that was just an example. What really is important for me in these fields is first that we check the 50%, so that we are not outside of the PCP scope, meaning that we are purchasing R&D services. And also very, very important is the total price with shared IPR. Why? Because this is actually the value that we are going to insert in the formula under the section 3.6 to give you the scoring for price. So please, here we will really need that information. I need all the rest of the information just to ensure that we are complying with the R&D definition, that we are complying, that we are going to have binding unit prices for all the phases, but really, really, really pay attention to the total price with share IPRs, meaning pay attention to the maximum cap and the minimum cap, because this is the value that will go into the offer, into the formula to evaluate your offer. The last page of the financial form includes a list of staff working on the specific contract. And probably you're wondering, why do I need to indicate who exactly is going to participate? Because we need to make sure that the performance of the contract takes place in Europe. So that's why we are asking even about the location, because we need to know who is performing where. Okay, so that's the point of it. Could I have the next slide, please, Arno? Okay, I think that Nick is going to go through some of these aspects, but just some disclaimers because we have received so many questions about this and I want to bring some clarity. And of course, feel free to ask afterwards, I will check the chat. You are going, as a contractor, you will keep the intellectual property rights attached to the results that you generate during PCP. That's also important because meaning us, so public buyers, we are going to receive a license to use these results up until the point they were developed. So if you make it until phase 3, we will have the right to use these results up until phase 3. If you make it just until phase 1 or phase 2, our rights stop at the end of phase 1 and at the end of phase 2. I hope that is clear because we have had this question several times. I can further clarify if needed. We also have the right to ask you to grant license to third parties. But of course, these licenses are not for free. You have to negotiate these with the third party under front conditions, okay? So that's also important. We have had many questions about let's say the after PCP phase. So if we have any rights to the commercial solution, this is not covered by PCP wise. This is not something that we have rights to. So the license does not cover it. Okay, that's important for you to know. Please note that you also have mandatory commercialization obligations, so that extend after the PCP. Okay. In this line, that's why I'm having here the second disclaimer. You need to make sure that you have sufficient rights, if not the ownership, to use any proposed proprietary software that you are proposing. Open source models, whether European or not European, and or data sets for the development and testing of the solutions. So you need to have the rights to develop and test the solutions, plus the further commercialization of the solution once PCP-wise is over. It is up to you to decide what you use, but you need to make sure that you will be able to use it, okay? And when it comes to contracting questions, I think also there is a slide in the next presentations, but please note that we are modifying Article 21 on liability from the framework agreement. This is a positive change for you because what we are doing is limiting your liability. Okay, so we had a comment about proportionality. We duly considered it. We thought it was sustained, and we are modifying this article to limit your liability when it comes to PCP wise. And I'm not sure if this is my last slide or I have another one. Yes, I still have another one. So if probably you have already downloaded them, but you can find all the documents that I was talking about today here in this link, okay? And if you have questions, I'm not sure if we have time for questions now or it's at the end, but I will now be checking the chat and I will also be complementing the answers given by my colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annabelle, for this very intensive clarification of all the tender documents. And yes, indeed, there are still a lot of questions. Yes, indeed, please answer them. And if we have limited time to answer all the questions, then the answers on the questions will be published on our e-procurement platform. All the answers will be answered, maybe not today, but then in the coming days. Okay, then we will go on with Arnoud, and he will present the e-procurement platform.
Yes, thank you, Joost. Indeed, there are a lot of questions, so we will have some work to do with answering all of them. But therefore, I think it's smart for me to not take too much of your time with this presentation, as I think it's quite straightforward, but I'm going to talk about the Tutogare platform and how you can submit a proposal in there. As you can see on the screen, if you need technical support, the Tutogare help desk is ready to assist you, and if really necessary, you can always contact us, but please use the help desk first. Well, when you are in the platform and you did not register yet, if you want to submit a proposal, you need to make an account in the platform, and therefore you are asked to fill out a set of information. And especially this business part, the economic operator data, there you can select professional or business, and you should select business there. There are also some questions about the tax code and the VAT number. The tax code is just the tax code, the tax number of your organization, and the VAT is the value added tax number. And there is an official European website where you can double check the number if you are not sure if you entered the correct one. And the same goes for the CPV codes. CPV stands for Common Procurement Vocabulary, difficult word for me, but you can find on the link that is provided in the screen, you can find the full list of CPV codes, and you can select the one that you need. Good to know is that the information that you are entering in the platform for your profile, it can always be corrected at a later moment. And if you happen to make some sort of mistake there, it's not a big issue because it will not result in a disqualification. But we just wanted to make sure that you don't spend too much time on it. The main important part is that you enter a correct proposal. And I will come to that now. If you want to participate, you can click on the green button in the platform, and then you will be brought to the next screen where you can enter your group of economic operators. So this is just a list of your consortium, and you can enter the correct information in there. I think it's quite straightforward, but if you encounter issues, you can always contact the help desk. Then we have the envelopes that Annabelle already explained, and within the platform, it's quite intuitive on what to enter where. The green, the green color means that you have correctly submitted a document in there. Red means that you still miss it, but it is mandatory, and yellow is that you still miss it, but it's not mandatory. However, if you are part of a consortium, then of course it's actually mandatory for you. So we expect that you will need to have a screen like this, all green, and when you have uploaded all the documents, then it's quite big in the screen, but you need to do an extra step. This is not enough. We don't see your proposal right now. You need to submit it first, and then you will also get a notification in your email, so you can double check yourself, and you can always, after submitting the proposal, withdraw it. If you want to make other changes, then you can just resubmit it at a later moment. So, important notes. Well, I already explained that you need to enter the correct information in the correct section. And one thing that we noticed is that you cannot enter multiple documents in each of the sections. So if you happen to have, for example, multiple CVs, please compile them in one single document and then upload it, because otherwise maybe we miss some of your documents. And there is, of course, an in-depth user guide on how to use the platform. This can be found under Annex 15 of our tender documents. And like I already said, if you have any technical issues, you can contact the Tutugare help desk on the email address in the screen. And then my final slide, just to highlight the deadline for the submission of the bids. It will be January 7th at 5 o'clock Central European time. So please make sure you enter your bid well before this moment, because if you have any technical issues or your internet's not working, after this time, it will not be possible to enter your bid anymore. So please be in time. So that was my presentation. I think we will quickly go on to Nick, my colleague from Advanced
Yes, thank you,
Software.
Arnoud.
Yes,
I hope
go
everyone,
on.
I hope
Go
everyone
on.
can hear me. I'll provide you with some insights from the Q&A and the implications that they have for you as a tenderer. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible to also have as much time as possible to answer the questions in the chat. So if you please could go to the next slide, Arnoud. So as Annabelle mentioned before, we have chosen to revise the liability classes. We received quite a number of questions on that. And we also uploaded a draft new liability clause that we intend to maintain. However, it will take some time to get a formal approval on this. And our new liability clause, what does it mean to you as a tenderer or consortium? So we've chosen to cap the liability to 1,250,000 euros for damages to property and consequential costs to anyone in relation to performance of the contractual service. So before it was unlimited, so now we have chosen to limit it to be more proportional and favorable to you as participants. And this is also the contractor's liability for other damages, also limited to 4 times the amount of the agreed upon price of the corresponding PCP phase where the breach occurred. So specifically to phase 1, 2, and 3. But be aware that these limitations of liability do not apply in any case of seriously culpable actions, such as intent or gross negligence by contractors or staff, or serious breaches of IPR. We try to provide you with the fully revised liability classes as soon as possible, but keep in mind that it will be aligned with, we hope to align it with this draft version. Next slide, please. So yes, and also as Annabelle mentioned before, we received some questions about the rate and cost differentiation in the financial form. Where we ask you to break down the cost for each PCP phase. I also noticed some questions about this in the chat. And please be aware that the indicated cost for phase 1 is your actual breakdown, while the breakdown for phase 2 and phase 3 is your estimate. And these hourly costs and rates for the R&D resource categories, for instance, personnel, we did not specify them on purpose. So it allows you to differentiate between junior, media, or senior roles, or even further as you see fit. But be aware that these rates that you provide for phase 1 are also binding for phase 2 and 3, meaning that they cannot be increased later during the project. Next slide. And another interesting question with some consequences for you as a consortium or as a tenderer is that it's about the interpretation of the word product reference or project in selection criterion 12. And we have revised this, and we now say that it doesn't have to be one project specifically, but it can also be one product as a reference. But be aware that if you use a specific ICT product or solution as your reference, then it still has to fulfill this the description of this criterion, and the different projects within this in your portfolio should all refer to the exact same solution or product that you've deployed somewhere. So this allows you a bit more freedom for this selection criterion specifically. Next one. Yeah, and then we also received numerous questions about what happens after PCP-wise. So I'll give you a quick summary of what happens afterwards. So after phase 3, the public buyer group receives an irrevocable royalty-free non-exclusive license to use the developed technology up to TRL 7 or 8, or below if you discontinue after phase 2, for example, for indefinite time. So it's only about the solution that has been developed as part of the PCP-wise project. This includes access to background sideground IPR needed to operate the solution. However, this license does not include future versions, bug fixes, maintenance releases, or new features developed after PCP-wise. So that's actually not part of the license necessarily, but it can be useful to the public buyer group. So it doesn't mean that we are not interested in any future developments of your solution. So what happens with this license also that we may grant a non-exclusive FRA&D license to third parties for the exploitation of the PCP developed results without sub-licensing, right? So they can't sub-license it to anyone else. And with friend, we mean fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. And this will be determined in mutual agreement during the project, depending on the developed solution, because we cannot exactly determine what would be fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory since your solution isn't developed yet. During the PCP, the parties will clarify which components of the solution fall under the fixed IPR framework based on the architecture that you will develop. And the full IPR conditions themselves are predetermined, and you can find them in tender document 1 and 2. And if you could continue to the next slide. But also, we do stimulate you to develop your solution further beyond phase 3. Because, well, first of all, you are obliged to commercially exploit the PCP developed results for at least 4 years after the PCP ends. And the solution developed during PCP-wise must be obtainable for future buyers, for instance, through public procurement of innovation or any other means of procurement. And this also includes new added features, as I said before, that may be interesting to the public buyer group that already has the license. But obviously, if you continue developing and it's interesting and the new features are really valuable, then the PBG might still be interested in also contracting those additional features. And that's also because that's kind of the purpose of this project, right? It's to have this solution available in the market so it can be contracted. And that's also why we encourage you to continue developing, customizing, and upgrading your solution. And these post-contract developments remain fully owned by the contractors themselves, so you can fully capitalize upon further developments and, well, hopefully help out European water management with your solution. Thank you. And I think that this was my, oh yeah, and so what's next? We hope to provide you with the final liability clauses as soon as possible. And along with that, we will also upload a revised tender documents, including the changes according to the information notices. And the entire Q&A information notice, of which I just provided a few main insights, can be found and downloaded from the e-procurement platform. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nick, for highlighting some of the questions asked during the Q&A period. Let's go on to the next item, We will give you some information about the matchmaking platform, and it should be useful, as also mentioned in the chat. Some companies have difficulties to find interesting and additional companies to fill in their consortium. Melissa or Sofian, one of you, you have the floor. And I know that Sofian at least is not in the office. He was here, I think, half an hour before that.
Maybe we should just skip this part and maybe move it to the end. If I think that might be the better
Yeah,
choice.
I don't know what went wrong. I think we go on to the next item, and that's the question and answers. We, of course, publish the slides, and hopefully Melissa or Sofian from GAC will fill in later this meeting. Are there any other questions asked, others than asked in the chat? And of course, as I mentioned, we will answer all the questions you have already raised. So the floor is for additional questions or questions that are not in the chat. Who can I give the floor? Please raise your hand.
And otherwise, we might just go through the questions in the chat and discuss the answers. Yeah.
Yes, Isabel, can you? Oh, yes, there's a question from Juni Ratanen. Please.
Okay, thank you. Jouni Rantanen from company Sitowise in Finland. I have been wondering the geographical coverage, what's been requested here. There are some pilot areas given, and certain phenomena are very local one, but on the other hand, there are very like national-wide or even pan-European-wide questions in the tender text. So could you somehow clarify that what is like the geographical focus, and asking this because the data sources and different kind of things vary a lot from country to country, and even going to the smaller area, you need different kind of data. So could you kindly help with the geographical coverage?
Hans.
I can answer that question. Thank you. So we have 5 lead test sites spread all over Europe, and per lead site we have 2 scales. We have a very small field test scale, and we have a sub-watershed scale, which could be sometimes, depending on the total watershed, could be, for example, 100 by 100 kilometers wide, or it could be less. And it depends on the local watershed configuration, of course. So we are not asking you to map the whole Donau or River Rhine or whatever, but have a logical hydrological unit where your local test site, where you have measurements there, as in this case as a user community for each 5 lead test sites. Then you have a surrounding sub-watershed. And the reasoning behind that is that we have 2 scales, is that once we have the sub-watershed scale hydrologically sound modeled, then you could also start to think of scaling that up to larger areas, for example, for the whole watersheds in the end. If we have the implementation phase after the project, after 3 years, we could even scale up more to pan-European if you have a robust solution to do that. But of course, we cannot grasp all the variety in geographical and geophysical and all kind of hydrological features in Europe. That's impossible. But given the amount of end users and public buyers we have on board, that's quite a lot. It's 11, and behind that about 150 users for now, which are related to our PCP-wise user community. Then I think we already have a very large representation for Europe, and of course we cannot cover all exceptions in Europe. So this is just the first start.
So any recommendation what the winning tender might include what comes to different data sources? Then there is a multiple list in certain appendix telling about those potential sources, but trying to digest what you just said, that which models and which field information and so.
Yeah, so it's still ongoing to grasp all the local data, because that requires to have contact with all the institutions like climate institutes and hydrological institutes and maybe universities or even inspection institutes for each member state, and that's not easy. But we did as much as we could do a lot of preparing for you as input to your solution. If you have gaps in data, you can always fall back to the Copernicus, the ECWMF, and the WMO, and all kinds of other grids which are already available in Europe. And we also recommend to use that, because that gives standardization later for scaling up as well. So the more, for example, the European Soul Grid, for example, which is input to many other Copernicus products already, that would be a good one to use. So check all the Copernicus data hubs and the ERA 5 and the C3S, all the different climate portals. Then you can also have at least a good standardized input to your process and your physical models.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, another question. Is there another question? Yes, Yuri Vlaslov, the floor is yours.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the presentation webinar. My name is Yuri Vlaso. I represent company EMIS Slovakia, and I saw a lot of interest in Slovakia here with PCP-wise from different rural communities and cities. Could you please advise how should I communicate this to them? So I believe there is a tool for cities to participate somehow, not being a test site. Could you please advise what do I reply to them?
Hans or Sofian, Melissa?
Yeah, maybe I could start, and then later
Yeah.
so I think it's good to communicate in your own country and or even other regions outside your country if you have the network. But it's also good to link up to our community mechanisms in PCP-wise. So if you can inform them and give a pitch on what we are intending to do also in Slovakia, then you might give them a link to our community or even our stakeholder group, the SOG. So they can be a member, or they can request to be a member and to be committed to the project as a user, but also as a governmental body, for example. But maybe Melissa or Sofiane can add to that.
As they are still not here, I think you can get access to the
Enrich Global.
The
link has been shared in the chat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? No.
Oh yeah, there's a...
Yes, Anna.
Yes. The last name is difficult. Yes, it's okay.
No.
It's me.
Yeah.
So I need to see an example for the document TD12 in the case that we have several partners participating in the tender. How can we present them separately to keep the limit of of the 4 pages that you have and which tables we can duplicate so that it's a project or sets of projects are presented per partner.
Anna, maybe I can take this one up real quick because I've seen your question. I was going to
Yes.
ask your question now in the chat, and it's easier if we speak out loud. So what you will need to do is you have tender document 12, and in tender document 12 you have a maximum of 4 pages per reference. Okay, so that means maybe I can share quickly my screen. Yeah, you're seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So this is what you're seeing when you're opening your tender document 12, correct? Here, what we are saying is that you can extend this table for 4 pages per reference. That means that you could have 4 of these tables, you should have 4 of these tables under tender document 12, okay? Because you need to prove 4 references. Is that part clear, Anna?
Yes, now I get it. So we copy the whole table 4 times.
You copy the whole table 4 times and you extend up until 4 pages per table.
Okay, so each time we
So in
reference.
total, you will have 16 pages.
So it's 4 pages per reference. Okay,
Exactly.
total 16. And in each table, we provide the references, one or more, from a single criterion.
Exactly. So here you will indicate
in the name,
criterion. See?
Okay, the criterion, and then the references. If it is, for example, 2 references from 2 different partners, this should be in the same table. If it is the same criterion.
No, you actually would add another table and then it would extend over 16 pages. But let me tell you something, and why shouldn't you overcome the 16 pages? Because you can provide with more reference cases. That's fine with us, perfectly okay. But it's not that you're going to get any additional points or anything else. If I were you, I would actually select the best reference per selection criteria, because that's the only thing we need. If you want to add more reference, that's fine, because I will be just checking that you have 4 pages per reference. So if you have 20 reference cases, that will be fine. Then we will just have to 4 pages. But it really does not have any added value for you, in the sense that we just need to check that you comply with the reference. See what I mean?
Yes, I understand it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course, great. It's great because I was going to reply to you in the chat, and now that's fine. It's even better.
Okay.
To be honest, I wanted to see it also live in the table, so it's better to see it in the video than in the chat. Thank you.
So much better, of course.
Okay, any other question? Marcel Bastiaansen. Easy to pronounce.
Yes. Sir, thanks for the update. And I see there was still a lot of questions to be answered, etc. And also looking at the upcoming Christmas time, is there an option? And I already asked a question in the chat, and I saw a lot of positive reflections on that. Well, to postpone the deadline just a bit to have a normal Christmas time.
I see your heart on the screen. It would give us a lot of difficulties in the rest of the project, because when we give you extra time, we have also to gain some time somewhere.
Yeah.
And that, and I don't know really where we should find that, because the project, the end of the project is definitely the 31st of December on 2027. So
Yes.
if you ask more time, can you indicate where you think you can find it? Is that during phase 2 or phase 1, phase 3?
Where I can find it?
Yeah, of course.
I'm asking for. I think we can manage 1 or 2 weeks during this all the stages. So that's. So I'm just asking for some kindness to postpone it with 2 weeks, because the pressure is during Christmas time, because the submission date is the 7th of December. And if you can postpone it 1 week, that will be very helpful. 2 weeks, even better. But and I think those 2 weeks can be found somewhere in the process. So that's all I'm asking. And I think looking at the reactions, that I'm not only one who's feeling that pressure. And I also recognize your pressure for postponing. So,
but there are 81 persons during this webinar, and I think only 7 or 8, so that's less than 10%. But I will.
You can have a vote.
Yeah. No. I will contact my colleagues because we already have set a scheme with dates for the evaluation process, and that's
Joost,
as you can imagine. This is.
I can add something as well. Yeah, there is an additional point. Of course, the evaluation has already been said. Joost and the HVH team have been working really heavily on having these deadlines and everything. But the problem is that it's not just about us, it's about the European Commission. We as you're aware, PCP wise, it's a European project, so the PCP itself, it's just part of this European project. So we have really strict deadlines to comply with European Commission. So of course we will study and discuss this internally, but it's very difficult for us to modify any deadline. We actually do not like that you have to submit everything for the 7th. In fact, for example, in Spain, we have holidays until the 7th. So I do fully understand the issue, but you please do understand that we are also constrained from the European Commission perspective and what we have kind of agreed in our grant agreement. So we will discuss it, but it's difficult for us to modify. And we understand your situation as well, Marcel.
Yeah. Okay. Well, of course. Thank you. But it was also a question during the market consultation half a year ago, so, and also mentioned then. Okay, it's difficult.
Yes, but as I remember, there was a company that asked, "Oh, please, can you set the deadline before Christmas?" Because the problem that between Christmas and New Year we don't work. So
I know.
Okay.
I was the one who raised that. So, but the
I
answer
didn't
is
say that. I didn't say that. It's you.
Yeah, but please take away into account that we haven't had a formal reply on the liabilities, because that's the important one, because that really affects our, I think, all the business cases or the plans we allow. So we need to have that reply as soon as possible to have that answer. So take that also into consideration, and then hopefully just we can have a postponed for 1 week. At least. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for a question? No. Annabelle, are there some questions you explicitly want to answer now?
I'm thinking, because I have already replied to many of those in the chat. Of course, I'm still moving in the chat. If you want to ask some of your questions out loud so that I can reply to them, that would be highly appreciated, because I'm really just going through the chat as quick as I can. But if you want some live reply, this is the perfect timing for it. And I think Anna has also, I hope it's not a question for PCP wise, probably just a remark.
No, I think we should tackle the questions that are repeating, for example, those on the translation and also those on the IPR, because I see a question that somebody is confused about the IPR, because the license is for indefinite time, but applies to the different results of the PCP phase if not all contractors pass to the
Anna,
phase.
so one of the questions is about the translation of the documents, right? So, okay, first one to that one, I have replied to that in the chat several times. Important. For example, the trade register certificate, it's logically in your native language. What we would need if you don't have an original certificate, because of course, as somebody pointed out in the chat, those take time to do. So if you don't have the original in English, so una traducción jurada, translated original certificate, what we would request you to send is the original one plus the translation, okay? So that we can really cross-check that it's indeed correct. We are pretty flexible in these things, but please, if you're not submitting the original translated version, just submit to us the original in your native language plus the translation.
A simple translation, not necessarily an official...
Exactly, that's what I mean. Great, thank you, Anna. Then licenses. Oh, Konstantinos.
Konstantinos,
Yes, sorry, it doesn't have to do. Sorry, hi. It doesn't have
Hi.
to do with the IP. It has to do with the budget. So when
okay.
you finish, please let me. Okay. Can I ask?
Go
you?
ahead, and then I go
Okay.
to the IPR. It's fine.
Okay. So in the financial section, there is a part, there is a clause that says something about the financial compensation.
Yes, for intellectual property rights.
For intellectual property, exactly. And you refer to two different values. The one is the tender, the value of the tender, and the other one is the exclusive development price. Where do we refer to the exclusive development
I
price?
have also replied to you in the chat, so I will just repeat the reply. When you are filling in your tender document 9, we just consider that you are already including in that price the price with shared intellectual property rights, meaning that you keep the allocation. Why? Because for us, what is really important is that price where you are keeping the intellectual property rights. That's the price that we need in order to calculate the scoring that you are going to get with the formula under section 3.6 of the tender document. So you do not need to include those two prices. Just please indicate your price where you keep the intellectual property rights. Is that clear?
Okay. Yes, it's clear. And one more, please.
Yeah.
Regarding the VAT.
Yes.
What is the VAT rate? Because it's not very clear to me what VAT rate should we use for our price.
I am looking to the HVH colleagues, because of course, since they are the lead procurer, we have to apply the VAT dispositions of the Dutch law.
I remember that we included a section in the tender documents actually explaining this
I would
part.
copy paste it in the chat, but literally my computer died, and I am at a colleague's computer, so I cannot copy paste it. If I am not
going
mistaken,
to try to find this
yes,
section.
Arnaud, I think it's at the end of 3.6.
Yes, you mentioned that it has to be the Dutch VAT, but you don't mention what is that rate.
21%.
Ah, thank you. That's what we wanted.
Okay, thanks.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was quicker.
Yes.
Yes, but please read paragraph 3.6. You said, Annabelle?
I think it's at the end of 3.6, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But if you just put literally search VAT, it will literally and immediately take you to that paragraph.
Well, actually, Annabelle, I'm doing that now, and I get 138.
Oh, gosh,
34
okay.
hits.
There are also
please
there are
don't
also
do that.
other words with VAT.
Do not do that. We will just copy paste it.
Yeah, I'm going to search for the information, and I will make sure to include it in the information notice that we are going to draft.
Okay. And if there are, yes, sorry.
Maybe the intellectual property rights comment.
Yeah.
So just for you to know, what happens is that you're keeping the ownership of the intellectual property rights that you develop, right? What we will get is a license to use what you develop up until the point it is developed. Meaning, if you make it to phase 3, we will have a right to use the solution until TRL 7 or 8, the point that your solution is over. If you make it to phase 1, we will just have the right to use the design solution, nothing else. And same goes for phase 2. Also, what we have is a right to ask you to grant licenses based on this PCP. So up until the point the solution is developed, okay? So that's important. And these licenses are going to be awarded on front terms. So you need to commercially discuss this with the third party that we want you to grant the license. I hope that's clear. I'm not sure if there is a further question on that. There is one thing that I mentioned slightly. Please consider that, of course, we just have a right to use the solution that is developed up until the point it is developed, because PCP-wise, of course, doesn't include the later stages, meaning the further commercialization of the solution. But under PCP-wise, you do have commercialization obligations. So if you check the framework agreement under Article 12, you will see that in the period of 4 years after PCP-wise is over, you must commercialize the solution. And you need to consider that already in the development, and in your commercial feasibility, your budget, everything needs to just already have in mind that you are mandated to commercialize on a later stage. Hope that also covers a little bit the questions. Anna, is there any other question that is repeated several times?
There is a question about the references. There's a question about if one partner can have references for more than one of the selection criteria. That's possible.
Yes. So that's what that's what I meant when I was explaining to Anna. I'm not going to say your surname. I'm sorry, because I will destroy it, and it's a beautiful one. So you actually, if you're working in a consortium, of course, the idea of working in a consortium is that you don't need to comply with all the requirements, all the selection criteria. The beauty of a consortium is that one partner has 2 references, the other partner has 4 CVs, whatever it is. Together, you need to comply with all the selection criteria. So that doesn't mean that everybody needs to have the same reference for all the cases. No, that's not the case. So partner A can have reference 1, partner B has reference 2, partner 3 can have reference 3 and 4. See what I mean? So together you comply with everything, and that's the beauty of a consortium.
Okay, thank you. Then room for the last question. No,
this is like a wedding.
And if there are none anymore, I thank you for participation in this second info webinar. I think it was an interesting one, especially when I see the questions you have. So it was also necessary to have this one. And as mentioned, we will answer your questions and publish the answers on the e-procurement platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I wish you a nice day.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. There's a question.
Nicola, is there a question?
Yeah.
You're still on time.
No question.
Nicola?
No, sorry. I wanted to put a thumbs up.
Oh, okay. Thumbs
Thank
up
you.
are welcome. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.